Greetings, everyone. Hello. I'm Erin Saniva, your high priestess, and welcome to the temple. Today, as we enter the temple, I welcome the presence of our higher selves, our highest selves. I welcome the presence of the highest consciousness into this space, love, and compassion. I ask for the divine to hold us in the light today, and I welcome the benevolent teachers and weavers of the divine plan to grace this space. To support the expansion and sharing of spiritual experience and education, this is the place where we witness the work that we talk about. We can be present for the unfolding of hearts returning to their true medicine. You may be called to this space today because you are seeking connection to your divinity, or you are seeking a space where you can dive into your inherent perfection. Remember how to heal. It's time to walk the path of love and participate in the restoration of the divine plan on earth. And so it is.
And so it is.
My friends, I'm so excited to introduce to you my dear friend, Milli Cannata. Milli is a visionary real estate broker, community leader, and founder of Own Your Dreams Academy. With over 2 decades of experience transforming lives and landscapes, Milli merges business acumen with soulful purpose, empowering others to build wealth, wellness, and authentic connection. Her work bridges real estate, personal growth, and community impact, helping people turn their dreams into tangible reality. Known for her integrity, intuition, and strategic brilliance. I love this so much. This is the best bio ever. Milli creates spaces, both physical and spiritual, where people can rise, thrive, and remember who they truly are. Yes, sister, welcome to the temple.
Today, I'm excited to be here with you today. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Well, you know, you and I have been friends for a few years, and we've been like I feel like we're a strong support for each other when this shit is hitting the fan, and we're like, all right, mama, where are you at with this conspiracy? Where are you at with this? And we're just like, okay, just making sure we're both seeing the same thing, feeling the same thing. And we always are.
It's very divine. And I think it's been like 7 or 8 years now we met. And I found you online on Facebook, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank Creator. And so, what's really cool with our friendship is we're in totally different spaces, but yet still in tune, and we could come back after time and be able to relate. And I just love you. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that so much. And one of the things that I especially love about you is how outspoken you are, and how you really don't hold back. You know, you're really smart, and you're able to hold on to a lot of information, and that's a difficult thing for me. Like, like remembering all of these things, remembering, historical elements and things like that. But you're really in your power, Milli, and it's so attractive, right? It's so valuable, and it puts off a lot of people who like can't handle it, But at the same time, those people realize, hopefully, that you're always telling the truth, right? Even if it hurts, right?
Yeah, the inconvenient truth is what I'm embracing right now, and how to share that, with love. I grew up with a bit of tough love and my ancestry, and, had to deal with those inconvenient truths from recognizing in school. They're like, yeah, Columbus discovered us. And then my family explaining on their side of what actually happened. And so it's been a conflict. And then what's funny, though, is I'm from the Wolf clan with the Cherokee, and I found a video recently, and it was describing the different clans, and we're all magical in our ways, but the Wolf clan, my dog here, he's part of my clan, but we are known to be a bit, rough around the edges, and off a bit gruff, and we are, we have a lot of tough love, and I carry that within me. And as I've shared with you, my 7th great grandmother, Nanny or Nancy Ward, as some know her as, was the beloved woman of the Cherokee and helped write a lot of these treaties and was an amazing negotiator. Unfortunately, we didn't quite understand all the words that were being said and written, and we operate under the law of spirit versus the law of commerce. So there was some confusion and all that. And, she drives me, and so I sell real estate, and I hold integrity with that, and I look at it more as I am an advocate for the people to help them protect their sovereignty and to claim their sovereignty through stewardship of the land, be it you own your own parcel or you come together in a co-op, or like we have a land paths program. It's an organization that preserves land. So there's different ways we can be stewards, but what it was so cool to hear was, it's just in my nature. I'm not trying to be harmful in any way. I don't want to hurt people with my words. Learning how to soften that and, present more with a little bit softer love. But unfortunately, some of these truths are very hard to ingest. And it's helped me to be empowered to understand it. So that's why I share.
Yay. Thank you. And such a powerful ancestry that you have. And our dear sister Natalie, she knows your ancestors. She knows of her.
I got beautiful. The book. I don't have it, and well, I do. Here, I'll grab it. This one of our sisters recommended during the circle. Oh man, it's not gonna work. Here we go. And there's so many wonderful messages in here, and I just wanted to thank them for enlighten me to this book, and it's just like we're all kind of going through this great reset and the great remembering and a great awakening. And so it's, we can't remember it all, but together we'll piece it together.
Yeah. And we have the books for those who have remembered for us, Yeah. So I would love to hear more about how your beautiful ancestry, is really fits into your work in the community there. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, well, it really is just a way of living. It's how I was brought up. And I am Native American. I'm 7th generation from when the treaties were written by my great-great-great-great-grandmother. And then I'm 1st generation also on my father's side. So I have dual citizenship to England. And where I really loved meeting you was that it helped me to venture outside and understand there's more to my heritage. And so you got me tuned into my Irish aspect of my life and, moving into all that. So with that, though, I discovered we all came from a clan, right? We all come from some tribal relation and have a connection with the land. And there's all these stories that have a common thread, throughout the globe that I can relate to. And that's where I think simply it comes to the law of spirit is number one, do no harm, and we all have rights available to us as sovereign beings. And so, we kind of take that for granted, what that actually means. And we, in my reality, it's like I walk with that integrity daily. As a realtor, we actually have a code of ethics that are beyond what's required as a real estate salesperson, and that it's those ethics and morals that we have to carry as humans to create a space that we all want to be part of. And so when I look at real estate, it really is just in my nature, one, coming from a wonderful negotiator down my lineage. And two is I really have good intention to help people understand what they're investing in. And I understand that the importance of, being a steward of the land, it's not just having shelter over your head, but to protect the resources of Mother Nature. And when, I obviously don't go around talking all of this to all of my clients. We do tend to get into pretty deep conversation and chat about our understandings and so forth, but it's contract law, right? And so we're writing contracts to help people to become a steward of the land. And you could take that further, and learn to really establish your crown and your sovereignty within that. And so, where if we walk with that integrity, it's real estate's not a dark business. Home is sacred, and
The
so
land is sacred.
exactly. And I just want to maintain that within what I do, um, following the law of nature. It's just, here we are. It's easy. If you just, yeah, I don't know. It seems easy, but obviously it's not for with a daily practice.
Yeah. Well, the combination of being present for the land, right? Like the ancestors that are on the land, and also, I mean, we're so far removed from the place of nobody owns the land, right? Like we're on the other side of the spectrum. We're like, no, every quarter inch of land is owned by somebody or something. And okay, so that's the way it is now. And we also hear that the best investment that you can do in your life is to buy land. And it's also one of the hardest things to do or to achieve. It's a very big deal to achieve. And it's part of the American dream that, and we hear it now more than ever that this generation is not our parents' generation, where it was a lot easier to buy a house. So how do you reconcile the desire for land and being a steward for the land, and people who maybe don't have the means, or they don't have the wherewithal to actually be stewards? How do we go about changing that?
So a lot of people think that realtors are simply just opening doors and pushing DocuSigns and whatever. There's a lot more that happens behind the scenes as far as how we show up. We actually are advocates for the community, number one. And so we are involved with a lot of policies that are passed, and we are the ones that help to stop certain entities and whatnot from wanting to own it all, because we're in a capitalist country, and it's lucrative. Real estate is what part of the machine that keeps us going, so that we have the means to feed our country. So because we adopted that model, that's why it's imperative people understand what they're voting for when it comes to different laws. And we all want to protect the environment, but there's a lot of environmental stuff that's pushed that limits our ability to build housing, which is a supply and demand thing that really isn't sustainable, as far as what I know as a Native American, as sustainable living.
Right.
And so that's where I think a lot of education is needed to just help people understand, because we're so conditioned to think this is how it is, and a house looks like a box, and all of that we have these building codes and these regulations that is limiting people's ability to amass wealth through real estate. And when you also impose our right to use our land as we would wish to, and with free commerce or whatever we want to do with our property, it limits our ability to keep up with those who have amassed wealth through real estate in the past. And of course, there's been a great divide of wealth due to real estate. If you look at title reports, you'll see old CC&Rs and things. Those are conditions and requirements and restrictions, things like that are covenants, conditions, and restrictions, basically. And it limited people from purchasing homes. As a woman, we really couldn't purchase a property till the 60s.
Not even.
Yeah, or maybe it was the 70s. I think it was
Well, we couldn't have a credit card until 1978.
Yeah, so I think it was around that time we actually were able to purchase the houses. There were other, thank God that the Black Americans were able to get those rights, the men, so that they can purchase. But within those CC&Rs, it says nobody of other color than white. You can't be like there was
areas you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
they call that the red line or something like that.
Redlining, or there's a whole bunch of, that's a whole different kind of thing too. But
okay.
Yes, and it limited people. They weren't able to build the wealth that now these wealthy people have because we couldn't purchase the properties. So just like my family, I do look white, and my family came from England on the other side. So that's a whole nother, try to track that history. It's pretty challenging. And so on this side, though, it's like we got the reservation. That was it, So we didn't get to build wealth. And so now that's why I'm more passionate. There are policies, like, for instance, in a town here in Sonoma County, Santa Rosa, if your parents have never bought a home, and it's like it had to be like 3 generations of no homes purchased or something like that, or you had to live here for 3 years, that's what it was, and your parents couldn't own a home, and you could get down payment assistance. Now, real estate's a racket. I'll just put it out there. That's what it is. So if you understand how the system works, you'll know how to work within the system, basically. And that's why you show up to make sure that these policies help the people and not the capitalists. But like, for instance, we have lots of down payment assistance. We have lots of money going into building housing right now. However, it's all going to be based on a for-profit model, not a co-op model, where co-op housing is sustainable. We have another project in Santa Rosa that's been around from the 80s that is a co-op model, and they had angel investors help to build it from the ground up. To this day, those angel investors still make money on $1 million loan. However, the people that own within that co-op are paying $1,200 a month for a 2-bedroom house in Sonoma County, which everybody else is paying like 28 or so, on average. Yeah. So that's a sustainable model, but it doesn't work within our GDP because we carry so much other weight with the transactions of closed escrows and purchasing of homes. So when these programs come out right now, what's happening is there's a lot of commercial buildings that have been hindered during, whatever issues we had recently. And so there is tons of vacancies, and they're going into foreclosure. And a way to bail them out is basically by converting them to housing. So, it's a win-win in a sense, but it's big investors and big developers that are taking on these properties. And unfortunately, not us as people trying to build co-ops with co-ownership. And so that's one of my qualms, but people won't invest is the argument. And so these people are building housing in these commercial units, which will help. But what the problem tends to be with that is that it's still not affordable housing. In our area is still like maybe 700,000 for these houses. And so what also happens is they create apartments, and then those apartments are funded through HUD, which then helps to pay the rent. If you didn't know, it's not the landlords that are actually pricing the market. HUD prices the market. So HUD dictates how much they're going to pay for somebody to rent their house out. And our tax rules benefit people who are investors. So, for example, I rent a house because it's more conducive to my lifestyle, closer to where I work and my kids' schools and all of that stuff. I purchased a home that's about a half hour away, and that's my investment. I have to rent it out to pay for everything. And what happens, though, is I actually get a better deduction as an investor than I would if I lived in the home. So if we all rented each other, bought a house to rent to each other, we'd be better off. It's a weird thing. And so then going back into it, HUD sets the housing prices. They basically will say, we'll pay this much for a rent. And so then these apartments are getting built, and thank God low income are going into those homes. But where I think we could take some of that money and actually, if we paid less in our overhead expense for taxes and whatever, it would help put more money in our communities, in our own pockets. So then we can have a bit more control of how we invest. And, if I want to put it into a co-op housing, or if I actually want to buy my own house, I have the more of my own means to do that, or my own community money to do that. Unfortunately, what happens with down payment assistance programs, there's a local organization here called Luther Burbank. They do a lot of great work, amazing housing projects, all this great stuff going on. They have to play the game as far as how to get the funding and all of that stuff. So it's a racket. Just so you guys know, the whole thing's a racket. It's just how it is. And so then They'll get a bunch of funding. They get paid
And
really well.
you mean that in the sense that the people with the money make money, and the people who don't have money are not making money.
Yeah, it's like, it's a well-designed machine, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
it like, if we look at the law of nature, law of spirit, land's free. We could travel wherever we want. We could take on
Right.
education. Like we have these liberties, but in this world of law of commerce, we don't. So this is how this racket works. How you work within that system.
Yeah. Wow.
Where was it going with that? So so Luther Burbank, they do have a program where they were offering $200,000 for people to buy a house. So you would be able to get free $200,000. Amazing, right? How many people actually get it? Hardly anyone. So what happens is, so I have an example. I had a house on the market. It was $450,000, and minus $200,000 for your down payment assistance. You would only need a $250,000 loan in California and wonderful Sonoma County to buy that house. Well, it's country property. So now your insurance is a lot more, and the way the math calculates and the program guidelines work, you actually have to make between 90 to 97,000 to qualify. So most of the people in that area are not going to earn that much money. And then you also have 3 people in your house on your tax return to qualify. So means you're going to have 2 people and a kid probably, because it's a 2-bedroom house. So, but nobody qualified. So what happened is we ended up selling that to somebody with a lot of cash, out of the city that was ability to afford the means, right? To afford them. So where there's reform is education. People have an opportunity to say how they want their tax dollars used. And, the hardest part is we pride ourselves on being this like economic machine, and we think that we're all saving the whole world, but we're actually work for the law of commerce, meaning for the betterment of the economy. And so if we wanted to, take a hit and have to be a little bit more resilient, maybe grow our own food and come together a little bit more and take the profit out of, our essential bare minimum, like what we need for life, like water, food, housing. We wouldn't be as, we wouldn't have as much money, and so
there it is.
Where do I don't care if we take the profit out of real estate. I rather that we have more housing. So, it's each of our vote that matters.
And isn't it interesting that the president is a real estate mogul?
He gets it,
he understands the racket.
Yeah, he's a businessman. He's a negotiator. Like we could all say a lot about that guy, but I did a little live earlier this morning because I was like, man, with this government shutdown, what does that mean for the natives? And we have these contracts and agreements and treaties. And if they don't if they renege on the agreement, we get our land back. And I was like, how crazy would it be if the natives got their land back and then we ran this country? And then that would
be phenomenal.
I know. I was also thinking, though, you know how long it takes a native, the people to come together and make a decision? We don't do things
a really long time. Yeah.
And there's a lot of sitting and thinking, and we don't sit, and argue it out. You let the man think. You let the woman think. It's disrespectful if you interrupt the process of thought and connecting with the creator. So we might see a lot slower moving of a economy.
Interesting.
But
wow. Is that really possible?
For the natives to get all the land back? I don't know.
I mean, even some?
Well, so we don't have treaties. Like mine only have treaties based on so much millions of acres, right? For the Cherokee. Each tribe, and then not all tribes are actually federally recognized, and it's pretty convoluted. The federal government owns land. We, as taxpayers, bought that. And so, we can't just take it. But we can work together, and that's what we're essentially trying to do. And, tribes today have come out of poverty and welfare states by drilling sustainably and getting oil and selling it. And like the Navajo, I think it is, they're drilling, they're billionaires right now, and they help fund a lot of our country. Yeah. And then my tribe, people come hang out and gamble, and we give a lot of billions. We give billions to the federal government in trade of, they're supposed to feed our people with the food stamp situation coming up. That's where they're going to renege on these agreements, and we could get land back. They farm a lot of our land. A lot of non-natives farm tribal land. That's not a fair, balanced, equitable thing.
Right.
They make a lot more profit on it than, on horrible hybrid food so there's a lot of changes we can make as a nation if the natives were to run it.
Well, I mean, even if we had Indigenous people, women and mothers, right, grandmothers and grandfathers, right, like that's how you create community where all of the voices are heard, right? So you have the people who represent the land. It reminds me of, I don't know if you ever read the book The Fifth Sacred Thing. So The Fifth Sacred Thing is by Starhawk, who's Bay Area what is it? Something the goddess, something the goddess. I can't remember. I read all of her books.
I gotta find her.
So anyway, she's amazing, and I got to work with her a little bit in my 20s, and sing with her actually. But she wrote this incredible book called The Fifth Sacred Thing, and this book it takes place in 2047, and it's pretty much post-apocalyptic California. Right. And so all of the people who were like not down with the military takeover, which is what happened in that book, and all of the people in the Bay Area just kind of moved north. Everything horrible was south, and right, like in the valley, and then they created their own utopia north of the bay, and the grandmothers were live on one of the islands, and they would be met by the community leaders who would consult with them and all of these different things, and they had all of this conflict resolution and repairable justice and all of these things that were just so valuable. Growing all of their own food, they tore up all of the cement, and it's like that is really ideal. But at the same time, like, the story is actually about saving people from the South and bringing them back to the North, right? And then also, whenever there would be a soldier that would abandon their post, I forget what that's called, and they would escape to the North, and they would have to go through healing and therapy and all of this stuff in order to just come back to being human, Yeah.
I can feel that, man.
Yeah. It's a really incredible book. I have chills. And it's just, it sets up ideals for sure for us, but it also shows us what's possible. And I like to look at it in that way, like as a template, at the same time that we're very much in such a pivotal point, like literally this very week, like this very moment, that we don't know what's going to happen come November 1st. Like, we don't even know.
We're creating it. Create what you want right now. This is the most divine time to be creating what we want.
Exactly. You're picking it up. So it's like, okay, we're in this divergence of reality, right? And so those of us who really want to grow our own food and live with the land and be in community and raise our children in actual villages that are not subsidized, but there are actual people, bodies, and teachers and healers, and everybody's like, I know that there are some who would say, oh, this is not even achievable or conceivable if you consider how many millions of people are in the cities. That's the problem. You've forced everybody into the cities. We have so much land in the United States that there's land for everyone.
I had debate. So because I love rural America, I know my upbringing was ingrained in me to protect the Native people, and there's a lot of other people out in rural America too that we don't hear from, and they're struggling. And one friend mentioned how if it weren't for the cities, they wouldn't be what they are today. And I beg to disagree, or to differ, whatever the term is.
Yeah.
I lived in a town in the middle of nowhere who are the farmers of America, growing thousands of acres of corn and wheat that we export. And they're middle of nowhere. And there's like 800 of us where I graduated. I did a little story on it yesterday. And shout out to Cheyenne Wells, C-Dub, our farmers. We subsidize them, and to produce profit for our country, basically. But those people are some of the most hardworking people I've ever met. And they aren't waiting for a handout. They are taking care of each other. Like, I lived in affordable housing, HUD housing, when I lived out there because my family was poor. And, they knew we lived in a poor people housing, but they weren't judging me like I got judged in the cities. People are afraid of me in the city because we're crazy. We would protect ourselves in the ghetto, and so it's a different way of living. And we do. And yesterday I was sharing, it took me a while from getting out of the city into Cheyenne Wells to acclimate and to actually reset and, be able to rest and digest. So my nervous system knew what it was like to get out of fight or flight. I'd never been out of fight or flight. I never fight. I'm a fighter. It's a wolf clan. We fight. And so, so and during the stupid whatever happened a couple years ago, everybody from the cities ran to my town, because we have country, we have nature. And that's how they got to relax and reset in such a traumatic moment of our lives, right?
Yeah.
And so what I had to remind my friend is,
are you talking about COVID or paradise?
Yeah, COVID.
Okay.
But yeah, so then when my friend was saying that the rural areas wouldn't make it without the cities, I was like, you guys wouldn't make it without the food. You wouldn't make it because you don't have that connection that these little areas have to maintain to keep each other together, because there aren't as many handouts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if you actually want to buy a house, USDA loans to get out into rural America, they're available. You can buy a house through those programs if you want to live in the country. Unfortunately, insurance is super expensive because, that's another part.
Is that everywhere or just in California?
Florida, wherever real estate's desired. It's a way of
Colorado here, rural land is also. If there's a building, if there's a house on it, it's very expensive. If there's not a house on it, it's cheap.
But then your rules, all our zoning and permitting rules, don't allow us to actually live in a trailer. Don't allow, and I understand there's health and safety, you need septic water, all that good stuff. But I don't know. Did I answer the question?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Was there a question?
I don't know. I love we could just talk.
I know. So I want to ask you about your youth community center.
About my the Slick Kids?
Yes.
Yeah, so Slick Kids is Sustainable Living Youth Co-op. It's something, when I first had my own kids, was like a project. I started to, and it was, I don't know how long, it's been like 15 years or something, but it was to teach sustainable living. And I first started off with Cannata Sustainable Living and realized adults are really easy, not easy to help change anything, and they're kind of stuck in their ways. So I was like, I'm going to focus on the kids and teach them. Like my grandmother taught me how to sew and can the food and, be resilient. So when I am poor, I could take care of myself. Right. Yeah. And that's where it all started. And then from there, we've done all these, and it was really just my friends and the kids and everything. And we've done different outreach programs. And last year I was able to actually secure a location, which was really like a huge monumental moment, and get some kids involved, and it was quite a commitment where I couldn't maintain it because I have to work to pay for it. And so I need to hire someone. And so I'm moving it probably into Sebastopol out of where I was. I don't know. I might go back to that same location again, but we'll see. But yeah, the goal is to create the kids so that they're more resilient, teach them sustainable living and how to run their own sustainable businesses. So when you're self-employed and able to gig, like I have 10 jobs. I'm not just a realtor. I do all kinds of things to make my way. And it was just helping. It is to teach those kids how to do just that.
Yeah.
Circumventing the system.
Yeah, well, and they don't even fucking teach home ec anymore. So they, it's like if we're not learning how to sew from our mothers or our parents, where are we learning? And I'm so grateful that I know how to sew.
Cook.
I barely know anybody that knows how to sew. Like, are you kidding me? Yes, to know how to cook or to even like put a seed in the ground and usher a fruit forward, like this is not easy. I've been gardening for a few years now, and it's fucking hard. And that, I probably had my most prolific harvest this year, and it still feels like nothing. You know what I mean? And because
it takes a village.
It takes so much energy, so much wherewithal as well. Like there's a lot to know, right? Yeah. And if you don't have someone who just already knows and can just tell you, oh, you don't plant the beans next to, well, now I'm going to say something that is good.
Yeah.
Okay, you do plant the beans next to the corn and the zucchini because they need the nitrogen from the beans. And then you plant the basil next to the tomato because they go together and they support each other. And the tomato shades the basil.
You're worrying about it. Remember when I asked you, how do we find truth? How do I know truth? And you said it's from within, right? And so just as you're sitting with those plants, that's why natives take so long to make a decision.
Because they have to stop.
Like, oh, I'm going to put that there and go read this book. No, they didn't have the book. We had the stories to remember it, but from the most part, you know what to do. You're talking about oral traditions where livelihood is interwoven into your daily, and it's second nature. But for us having to remember, I don't know it all, but I do know that we are divinely guided, and so I trust in you. You'll
thank you for reminding me.
But it reminds me also is CSAs. So we can't plant our own. Like somebody was, I think he's stupid, but he was like trying to make a point apparently that how much it really costs to make your own hamburger. And it was like millions of dollars or some ridiculous thing and took like 12 years, and it's like, well, he's stupid because we don't like, I would never have to do all that individually to get myself a hamburger. Like I don't mean to call the guy stupid, but I'm resourceful. I'm going to go out and I'm going to see what I could offer to my people so that we can make trades. Right. And then I would be able, oh, you got some of this. I got some of this. Hey, look, I'm going to make me a hamburger next week.
Right.
Right. But CSAs, the community sponsor or supported agriculture. And I think that's where we need to get more help because those are local farmers. They aren't able to keep up. They don't get all these subsidies because we're not mass producing for exports, but they're woofing it. You could go woof it on their land where you're working with them to learn these things, and so I think that's where I want my money to go is here for that. And by the way, I'll be on my platform for a minute. Industrial farming is what's causing a lot of our problems. And because it tills the land and then when you till the land, it releases a CO2 that burns off our marine layer that causes drought. Then we pay for subsidies to also make it rain. So then, we're spraying chemicals and everything all on our food and we're using food that's like hybrid and lacks nutrients and all this stuff. So it's just another wreck.
And the soil's just fucking depleted.
Totally. Kiss the Ground is a great documentary because he talks about, and we might only have like 5 harvests left right now, actually, as a nation, by the way, because we have ruined our soils. And so if we subsidize the same farms that we subsidize now and these CSAs to convert to permaculture farming, it takes about 5 years actually for them to then become profitable again.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not so profitable as a nation because we won't have all the food to export in mass. I think it's like corn and soy we export, and it's like 18% of our GDP. We're not going to have that. So we have to decide, do we want fake food that we export for profit to not take care of everybody and create a divide? I like capitalism. Unfortunately, it's like a way that I've come up because, I wouldn't have if we didn't have opportunities.
I don't think capitalism is going anywhere soon, honestly. No. But what we do need is more moms in charge.
Transparency and education. And that's why our education is so important, because we are trained to be workers, where we're not trained to be critical thinkers or creators.
Right. That's absolutely right on. And we have to even educate our children to how the education system was created in the first place. And so like when I try to have these conversations with my teenager, we have children who are the same age. And my high schooler, like, she'll be like, okay, so what'd you learn at school today? And then I'll like tell her the opposite, like afterwards,
Discover America.
So, that's a little bit of brainwashing, but here, let me tell you the other side of it, And so the wonderful thing is that I have witnessed her doing is thinking for herself, which is amazing. And that she's like, Mom, what do you think about this? Because my teacher said it's this way, but that doesn't feel right to me. And I'm like, I'm so glad you're listening to your intuition, because that feeling that you have is absolutely correct, And I remind her that the education system was created by an oil tycoon who wanted to create employees. That is the basis of our educational foundation. And we need to be removing ourselves from these structures of control, and my sister, I call a lot of ladies my sister, but my one biological sister that I have, she's a teacher, right? And she's a wonderful teacher. She teaches through theater, right? So she has 2 master's degrees about teaching through action and, especially teaching math. And when I talk to her about Common Core, she's all for it. And I'm like, you have to be crazy. You have to be crazy. And just considering how, like, looking at my child when she was in 3rd and 4th grade and how they were expecting her to think about things and to show her thought process to get to the wrong answer. Literally, they wanted her to put, like, the correct answer was the incorrect answer. That doesn't make any sense. And maybe somebody out there, it makes sense to them. But we need to be looking at educational systems that serve the entire human, not the regurgitation, left brain, but the holistic child, right? Yeah. And that includes knowing how to grow your food. And here in Boulder County, we're lucky we have a good food system. They make pretty good high quality food. They're kind of like known around the country for their system. And my daughter's like, still tastes like shit,
Like, organic doesn't mean it's actually wholesome. Like,
no, totally. They're still eating organic every day. You know what I mean? It's like, how is that better? But then now they have gardens in front of the school. And I'm even like seeing the garden full of vegetables going to waste, so it's like, you're doing it for show. You're doing it for show. It's not actually being used. At the Waldorf school where my younger kids go, they have a larger garden. The kids are in there. When the veggies are ready, they fucking harvest them. They take them inside and they cook with them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like the public system is doing this whole facade that we are giving your children a well-rounded education, but that's only a facade.
Well, so I look at it as like, there's good weaving. We have to weave good through all this. And we do have, crazy old restrictions that make it hard for the good to do. And so we have a lot of those gardens here. And what I believe happens is, one, there's not enough to actually use it to feed the schools, like you said. And two, there's a liability involved. And like the schools don't want to take on liability if your kids get sick from eating it. Yeah. And so that's where the Waldorf is maybe a little more. And
yeah,
that's
sure. That makes sense. That makes sense.
What I wanted to encourage is, that food does need to go somewhere, because we have them too that are just sitting there, and like the kids that don't have as much means, they'll get them. Or I want to just have more food gardens, period, because anybody can come up and just grab some food. Urban harvesting.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so so in North Boulder, where we last lived, that place used to be an orchard. So there are apple trees everywhere. We had a pear tree, or neighbor had an apple tree. You could just go for a walk and you could pick up 3 or 4 different fruits. Yeah. Amazing. Why are we not continuing this? Like, we need to be...
It's a profit system. It's the commerce rules everything. And so like with my county, for example, going into real estate. So I fight our government from stealing people's houses because they can red tag it and whatever. And they are actually facing, people have pressed RICO charges against our community, like our county, for this problem. And how did it get there? So why did it go there? Regulation. What would you say?
Food, gardens.
Yeah, something
community
like
gardens.
Community gardens. Oh, well, shoot, I forget it. The commerce part. So what happens is, where I would think it makes sense, we're very Democrat here. So we want to protect everybody. We take care of the world, right? Yeah. So then I'm really...
Thank you for your virtuous actions.
I'm trying, but what really happens behind the scenes when I'm fighting our Democrat constituents to make sure these people don't go homeless, because right now we have a lot of seniors in their houses, that are living in their cars now in our community, that we pay a lot of money for homeless prevention. It's a racket. And so then the supervisors, I'll have conversations trying to get them to have their power to tell because all these different entities are not always government and are for-profit and all these different, so we have county, and then we have permit resource management department, who profits on people getting red tagged and have sold people's houses. And so then that's where these RICO charges come in. And I've had to then come to means with the fact, when I was a housing counselor for HUD, actually, and negotiating with banks to give people a modification, there's a test called a net present value test, and it would determine if it was profitable for the lender to modify your loan, or they wouldn't do it. And so then I started to recognize, okay, our government works the same way. They have some sort of means calculation to figure out if it makes sense to help the senior save their home. Well, it didn't make sense. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. So if you guys aren't doing it out of integrity of the fact that this senior, we're not helping them to stop you guys from stealing their home. Plus, I did this other project where they have a rebuilding together in our community. And we went to these seniors' homes, and they were repairing this woman's deck. And decks need permits where I live. And it was so damaged that they actually had to do a lot more repair, which would have triggered a permit. And the county supervisor that I had to go head to head with many times was there and saw this. And I filmed it for a TV show and put it all over the United States. And if they happened to get mad at that old lady, they could have extorted her out of her house too. And I use that as an example for the supervisor when I was trying to save some man from losing his house to the county. And I said, what's any different from him having unpermitted work and we doing unpermitted work together as a nonprofit for that woman? You were there. You watched it happen, and my hands are tied. Talk to the ombudsman. I get pissed off about this. Sorry. And it didn't make sense. And then I basically called it out. I said, all right, it ain't about us helping the people stay in their houses, is it? What is the financial incentive that you guys have to take this property? Well, lo and behold, that receiver, he's bought 3 of the houses that they've took from people. You shouldn't have ability to buy houses. That
is a conflict of interest if there ever was one.
RICO charges, right? Okay. So where I show up, by the way, I'm not trying to sell you guys a house if you want to talk to me. I'm happy to represent you. But I show up with the integrity and the advocacy to protect these people because they don't know their rights or have the means for them to just go do things to get these people off their back, And so, number one, don't let them in. Have a no trespassing sign. They're like vampires. Unfortunately, they
to try and get you to sell your house.
No. So what happens if you have a complaint and they think you have unpermitted work or doing stuff you're not supposed to do? The county will want to access your property. You're right. You don't have to let them do that. They have to get a warrant. And if they have substantial information and can do that, they will get a warrant. However, that's what I'm saying. They're like a vampire. If you invite them in, you have given them permission on your property. You could put a no trespassing sign, put a gate up, put a lock. Like, they do not have right to access unless you give them permission.
Interesting.
And then you need to know your rights once you let them on your land.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wish they were all here to keep us in our houses, but I worked with HUD. I got to see how the banks operate. I got to see how our government operates. And as much as I want to say that they're working for us, no, okay. Another crazy thing. You guys should figure out where your money's going when you pay taxes. So like in our county, we had a hospital that didn't know how to budget. And so they had used bonds and things and to buy it, whatever. So then the public had to basically repay these bonds when they went bankrupt. And what happens is our community, our county supervisors basically are the ones that would make sure that the taxes are paid on that and that the bond is paid back. And so there's a bankruptcy trustee court that gets involved, and they come up with these numbers and a time frame for when these payments should be made and all of that. Well, this has been going on for a while, and we just finished making the payments to the bankruptcy court. However, there's another $5 million in taxes to be paid for the next 5 years by this small district. And it's because it costs about $1 million a year for our supervisor to pay the bill. And so I'm like, why don't we have the data entry person doing that work? Because does it make sense it cost $1 million for these people to pay our bills a year? No.
What?
No. Right? But how many people are involved? Well, the county.
And how much is that happening all over the place?
Yeah. So the county supervisor gets $180,000 a year. Plus you got all the other people that are, because what happens is everything's compartmentalized in government. It never gets smaller. It just gets bigger. So now you have 80 people that have to touch something just so that bill gets paid. That's sufficient. I'm like, and why are we paying that? But I'm retarded for asking questions.
Right.
I get all angry and digress. Sorry.
You're allowed. You're totally allowed. Tell us about the TV show that you were doing.
Yeah, I'm not doing it anymore. I figured that was a racket too. I didn't know. So I felt like I was taking advantage of my naivety and didn't understand how marketing worked in the world of Hollywood, basically. And so it was good. It was a great way for me to get a platform to highlight our locals. And I'm still doing that, but not through that program anymore, because it really wasn't what they had sold to me. And so I did it for about a year and a half, and it was really cool. And it really taught me a lot about how, production works. And I met some really cool people, and I still am doing it just in a different way.
Okay, cool. Yeah. To highlight local, like, mom and pop shops and different, entrepreneurs in the area.
So my platform for that is to help small businesses keep up with big ad spend, with the digital market space right now. If you don't know how to use it, or don't even, like, if you could get a $5, marketing going at least, then we could teach you how to be seen when everybody else is trying to shut you out.
I definitely feel, Millie, like you have been placed there as a pillar, as a beacon, of like Mother Justice, Ma'at, like just,
when I was in Boulder, actually at a rave back in like 25, 30, I don't even know how many years ago. I saw Kali and I didn't know who she was. And I took a picture and I gave it to my tattoo artist, Josh Womack. Holler at you out there. He drew it up as this big old picture, like it's my whole back is Kali. And I knew her as
How
that.
did I not know that?
I'll have to send you a picture. But at that time, I knew her as a dancing warrior, and I was a raver and I danced, and I was a warrior because I had to protect myself, and there's a whole other thing to that. And then as I come into motherhood, and oh my God, that woman is freaking, she pushes me too. She's one of my, yeah, she's got my back.
Literally. The people that I know that have Kali tattoos, they're definitely systems breakers,
destroy. So that was what I would tell people, is that we would come in and party and entice everybody with a good time, and we would destroy evil and rebirth good. That's as simple as I can put it. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm meant to destroy evil. I try to do it as nicely as I can. We'll have a party while we're doing it.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit intense. This is like one of the things that is a big piece for those of us who really speak our minds, and we don't necessarily always like think of softness in the moment. This is why you and I vibe so well.
Our humor is very sarcastic, and it's how I learned to cope.
And that makes sense, that's how you learn to cope. You know what I mean? But I feel like the energy that you carry, and being a system disruptor, code disruptor, even,
I'm on the cusp of oscillation.
Well, and in that, you have your ancestors' potency in you, of like the voices that were smothered, that like, they can't be smothered now, bitch, watch out, she's on a roll, and like don't ever, nobody wants to be on Milli's bad side, nobody wants to be on Milli's shit.
I just have to fight, everything was a fight, like literally. And to learn to control my emotions, so I didn't, I wouldn't be the one that aggressor, I would be the one to protect. So I would fight for the underdog, or really, I wasn't out there bullying anybody, I was just protecting. And so that's what I was saying. I couldn't get out of fight or flight in those neighborhoods.
Yeah. And it makes sense. It makes sense, but it also makes sense because you have the chutzpah to stand up to the bullies, that were literally trained to be bullies. They were trained to be rich assholes. They were raised that way.
And there's good people with wealth.
Yes, of course. But the people who are taking advantage, like your county supervisor, and like all of that bullshit.
Well, what's funny with her too, she pretends she's a country girl, rural, but her family comes from Southern California, where they owned a racetrack and have tons of money, and she was put into that position.
You know what I mean?
I'd like to. I try to give her a chance. She tried. I don't even know.
Well, the amazing thing is that you're there speaking up for people who don't know how to speak up for themselves.
And I don't say it as clearly, so maybe that gives them an opportunity to know they don't have to be perfect to sit there and say what they think or feel.
Yeah, if you mess up on the pronunciation of something, be like, see, I'm just like you.
That's where I've been showing up on these lives on my robe and not all done up, because like that
very real and raw
ability for people to be vulnerable when I'm all done up and have like, it makes it hard to approach. And so like I want people to know my humanness. Like I'm not mean, I'm just pretty direct.
Yeah, no, you're straight up, you're cut clear.
That's easier.
Yeah,
it's so exhausting.
You save so much time. You just save so much time. Don't beat around the bush. The bush has been beat, to a pulp. Like, let's just be straightforward. If we had literal transparency in the world, if people really said what they felt, like, here's the thing. I can't remember where this was from. If this was from a book, a novel, or someone that was like communicating with an ET, I feel like. But there was this individual who's communicating with an off-world advanced being, and and they're like, well, if you always had like the ability to come and visit us and help us, why didn't you? And their response was, because you lie.
Oh, wow.
And that because humans don't have total telepathy, we lie. We don't tell the truth, and we aren't transparent, and we hide ourselves, right? Because we live in this polarized world of competition as well. So I have to hide my hand, not tell you what I'm doing until I do the thing, so that you'll be surprised and taken off guard, and I will have advantage. That's literally like the MO on this planet, And so there's like this, I feel, I hope, I pray, like as telepathy is opening for people, we've had the telepathy tapes, so there's scientists out there who are literally proving telepathy. And I had a conversation the other day with an autistic woman who goes to the fucking hill. I was like, are you kidding me? Tell me about the hill, And so if you guys don't know what the hill is, listen to the telepathy tapes podcast, and it's about nonverbal autistic children who are fully telepathic with their caregivers and with other nonverbals. And I have full body chills. It's phenomenal. And for me, as a psychic, as an intuitive, it makes me really, as someone who is telepathic, it makes me really excited for the future, because we need to stop hiding from each other. Like, people need to know that I can read their minds. So like,
I know, it's like I that was the thing, is like, okay, I need to remember to ask for permission more often, because I don't even know all this shit from these people. It's none of my business.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's like, nobody asked us permission if they could just project their mind out constantly.
Correct. You got that right. Yeah.
So there is this, I feel that as we evolve, that we will be able to be more forthright, and we will be forced into our integrity, because we can't hide from each other, and people will become more and more able to spot a lie and call people out on their bullshit, simply because I can hear you.
I can discern truth.
Well,
there's a few parts to that. So the white lies, and sort of that's something we didn't like. We got the uncomfortable truth, and white lies are to protect people. And so that's where, when you sugarcoat or you don't tell your friend that, maybe your husband's cheating, or whatever it is, like, you should be telling those people these uncomfortable truths, because that is even the white lie, right? And then the telepathy tapes, one of the, I don't know if it was in that one, but they were talking about how they're going to these different realities and they're fighting this galactic war. And had you heard that yet?
No.
So I'll have to find it and send it to you. And then I have a friend, her son, he didn't get on the telepathy tapes, but he was nonverbal. And today he's graduated from Berkeley, and like, just the amazing thing.
That's amazing.
They thought it would never be over third grade level. And what I see from that tragedy is freaking awesome, because here, unfortunately, my son's autistic, and I believe it's from vaccine. And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have these people discovering telepathy that thought it was just this big old,
Yeah.
And then same goes, like, if our government can't get it together, maybe it isn't a fearful thing. Maybe the natives will actually get it together. So, I try to find that silver lining in these chaotic times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we can imagine a better future, I'm not going to say a perfect future. While we are creating the perfect future, we are bringing together communities that include everyone's voices, because that is what is most important, because it is the smallest voices that get trampled, right? And whether or not you are a spiritual person, we all have a responsibility to humanity in one way or another, you know? Like, you feel like, you know, you have a really powerful purpose in protecting people who just don't know. You've learned a lot, you've studied a lot, you know a lot about the law, and that is a profound boon for anybody who comes across you and needs help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think that's where opening the space, because right now we're so divided that we shut down just from stupid, you know, colors. And if we could come together, because I pissed a lot of people off last week or whatever that was, and I had to chat with some really good friends that we have differences of opinion, right? And there was some misunderstandings on my part, and when we can open that vulnerable space for us to have these kind of open conversations, that's where we could get an understanding of where there's misunderstandings or where there actually is action to be taken for change, right? And so I think we all have these commonalities, and that's where I'm like trying to not say colors and all these things, because you know, it's just if we could get to the space to say, yeah, we want good food, but see, this is the thing, people do like to profit over others. So I don't know if we're ever going to come to a place that there's equally, and I don't know that equality is actually fair. That's more like socialism in my idea of things.
Right.
But we can divide, you know, get that gap a little less. Like right now, the wealth gap's like this. If we can actually get some of that wealth into these communities, then, you know, we don't need a lot. I don't want a bunch of material stuff.
The more that you support the growth of the middle class, the more that you support lifting people out of poverty. That's literally, it's a chain reaction.
Yeah.
It's not trickle down economics either. Like, it's literally, if people who are in the middle class have the capacity to hire people to help them, that pulls people out of poverty, right? And the people who have their own businesses and only get paid a little bit.
And that's where we should have everybody, like, what skills. Okay, so I'm going to go, there's this new or something that you might want to look into called the overeducated and underpaid. And what happens is, this is historically repeated throughout time. I posted something yesterday about it. And we are at that time where we have a lot of, like, unfortunately, our students are graduating without ability to get a job, and they're strapped with debt, and they're very frustrated. And it is idealistic things that get pushed right now that are not realistic. And they are the ones that typically lead to these revolutions that we then actually create. It doesn't actually create equitability as much as the utopian ideal wants, you know? Right. So that is a big focus for me, is if we remember, you know, there's a lot of skills. Even as a realtor, I'm using my mouth, right? I'm in negotiation. That's a good skill, but everybody needs to know how to negotiate a contract for themselves, because everything's a negotiation. And so then if I didn't have that, right, if the world crashes, what do I got? I got my ability to cook, sew, garden, right? I know how to offer those skills. And so that's where I want to encourage these people, is if we go back into trades, because before your last name was based on the trade that you did. And we all have a divine purpose of how we're going to show up. You know, it may not be to negotiate a contract. It may actually be me having to do some labor, you know, and put my sweat and love into it. You know, I sweat a lot with real estate, but in a different way. And that's where I'm like, if we get back to the basics and we, you know, appreciate what we're divinely guided to do. It's like, what's your purpose? Fucking know. Half the people don't know, but it's like, what do you like to do? Do that. Go create. Go paint. I don't care. Make some art. That is actually the most rebellious thing you could do right now. Grow garden, be creative.
Yeah. Yeah. I was having a conversation this morning with my girlfriend who's contemplating taking on the business that she's been managing for 20 years. And the owner is like, I'm done. I'm getting out. You can have it if you want it. And so she calls me. She's like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, I can see how it'll serve me, but, but the thing is, like, we also have to look for these ways that we're being asked to step forward in our community, right? So my girlfriend's, fear is that she wouldn't have the time to do the things that she loves to do. And from my perspective, because she's having a hard time seeing outside of her being there for 20 years and being somebody else's business and not her own, I'm reflecting back to her, well, you'd have the ability to make your amazing food and sell it out of the place. You'd be able to make all of your amazing healing medicinal stuff and sell it out of your own store. You'd be able to and I will help you. Because we all, and part of the biggest chunk of this conversation was like, our community is losing itself to these big corporate stores, and all of the small businesses are leaving Boulder. And this is one of 2 metaphysical stores left. And I'm like, you can't close down one of 2 metaphysical. I've always wanted to have a metaphysical store. Like, of course, I'm like immediately like, how can I be a part of this? How can I help?
Yeah, well, and that's what's so divine about it. And like with my job, they tell you got to do all these things to go get the business and show up a certain way and look a certain way and don't say that and blah. And I don't do that. I've been making broth. And I get people call me and they're like, we need help. And I'm like, cool, because I'm doing what I actually is creative and good for me and bringing.
Yes.
And then on the other part, I am helping a guy. He has this filter. It's saving the world. He works with these, he calls them Planet Beers. They're freaking $1 trillion companies, basically, that mine a lot of our minerals. And he has a filter that actually can take the waste and make basically clean water. It's an amazing product. Wow. And so he's going through the big squeeze right now, like a lot of us. And I'm just pretty much giving, I'm helping him, he's 75. And I'm like, you're still working out in 1990. Let's get you up to here. I'm doing it because I want his product to succeed.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, he's about to close a bunch of deals with, and it's just like,
yes,
fantastic, because that I believe in that product. And so I'll show up and one day I'll be rewarded. I don't work for today.
Yeah.
I know I'll be
that is such a good point. We're not working for today. We're working for the future. And that is also like where I, landed back with my girlfriend. It was like, remember that this place has been and can be again a community hub.
Yeah.
Right. It can be a vital place for people to go and get spiritual resources. And right now it's a head shop and a crystal shop. And the most that they sell there is crystals.
What I'm getting is doing a crystal grid. Maybe you could work with her on that and do the corners.
Oh, I mean, there's so many things. And, just like all of the old owner's energy just has to be completely removed, and revamp the store. And,
fresh.
She can inherit the legacy of the name that's been, an institution for 30 years in this town. So valuable, so incredibly valuable, while at the same time serving her divine purpose within the community. And that's the thing, is like, if we orient ourselves around service, right? If we are not, I love this phrase now, chasing the bag,
I don't chase, I own my dreams. I want you to own your dreams. You don't chase your dreams, you own them.
That's the whole thing, is like, if you are holding it in your being, I am who I am. I help when people need help, when they ask me, right? And I'm very generous with my energy. I'm very generous with my energy. And at the same time, I make sure that I'm doing things that serve me, like growing the herbs that I'm drinking right now to help me in whatever the fuck is going on with me.
The broth I made.
See? Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. So, it's like, if we can orient ourselves, divine purpose includes community in one way or another. You can't serve a purpose unless you're just focused on animals and the planet.
But that's community.
That is your community. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I would love for us to kind of, close this conversation with a hope for the future of just really being in that alignment of what we would like to see, what we would like to create. Because we are in the temple, yes. And we're turning over all the tables in this temple, so that we can have our feet flat on the floor and our hearts to the sun and our crowns to the central sun. And we can remember ourselves as humans, as community, as brothers and sisters, and in between. And an integral part of the health of the planet is our connection with ourselves and each other. And so from my heart, I lift up a prayer, initially of reconciliation, whatever is needed so that humanity can come back into balance of the way that it sees itself, without hierarchy, without class, just as humanity. Yes. And for us to come back to community, come back to the circle, come back to the well, come back to these places where we can be resourced physically, energetically, and spiritually, and even financially, that we can support each other in the ways that we need, so that we're not all alone and struggling, but that we are all a part of a larger, greater community that is not about borders, that is not about limitations, that is not about difference, but is about love, is about creation, is about harmony with nature, is about the restoration and the thriving of humanity on this planet, based on loving reciprocity.
So it is.
Will you add to that, please? Can you pray for us, Millie?
Creator, thank you for giving us the divine guidance so that we can stay rooted, yet pillars in our community, so that we have the clear connection. I thank you for presenting all the animals who remind me along the way of how to show up, like my wolf clan reminded me to play. I thank you for reminding me what's important and reminding all of us how to lead with integrity, follow the redwood home, and to know that we are divinely protected and that we will continue to be resilient. And as we find ourselves walking the path, and if we feel doubt, we'll continue to have the words of our ancestors and the guides, and from the tall ones and from the flying ones and the little people, whoever is available to speak to us in that divine moment, we thank you. We're so grateful for what you've brought to us into this existence, and so grateful that we are in remembrance of who we really are. Thank you.
Thank you. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you so much. I could hear your dog snoring a little bit.
Lazy dog days. Be a dog.
What a dog.
I love it. I relate to them very well.
So how can people find you if they want to connect with you or consult with you as a broker? How do we do
I
that?
can help people globally if they want to invest in real estate.
Is that because you're a broker and not a real estate
My
agent
broker,
anymore?
so I'm a broker associate. I am a broker, but I associate with my brokerage, which is Vanguard Properties, and we
Right.
do have networks that allow us opportunities to get to far places. So that's
Oh,
how I
cool.
can help with global real estate. So nationally, locally, whatever. I also established Own Your Dreams Academy, which is a consulting hub to help people get connected with who they
Is there a
need.
website for that?
Yep, ownyourdreamsacademy.com. And the goal with that is to help people own your dreams. And meaning, everybody's like, you got your one coach who's like, oh, yeah, you should do this. And they're only an expert at like a bit of things. But we need a team. And sometimes you need a financial advisor or an attorney or whatever it is. And so my role there as a networker is to connect you to those people, help you to look at what resources and consider all aspects of what you're trying to achieve, be it not just owning a property or doing whatever. It's like my life focuses on the wheel of life, right? So we have to look at where you're at in all aspects of life so that you can be empowered to own your dreams. So that's what my biggest newest project is. But yeah, so reach out 707-477-7839. I'm always
Oh my
happy.
God.
You want the number?
Yes, it
70. That's how we taught. Like, so when you're saying it, you write it out.
you write it so you remember it. Yeah.
707-477-7839, or just ping me on Facebook or whatever. And I'm always open just to chat.
Yeah.
There's something I can offer here.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well,
It's so good. So good to talk to you and to also pick your brain about all of these things. And thank you for everything that you're doing. It's really, really incredible. Thank you for being an advocate for people who don't have voices.
Well, thanks for helping me to be able to share my voice. When I first met you, it was a lot more challenging to be able to get to this point. So I attribute a lot of that to you. So thank you. One day I'll sing with you, and we're going to go on global retreats. And as my last shout out, I wear this for my sisters. So I wear red for my sisters. And basically that's for the murdered and missing Indigenous women in our country. Yeah. So if you guys want to support our people, we will support you too.
Thank you, Millie. So much love to you. Thank you to everyone who's been present for this conversation. And follow Millie. Reach out to Millie if you have any questions about owning your dreams. She can help you.
I hope to make it here. Own your dreams.
Yay. So much love to all of you. We'll see you again. Take care. Bye-bye.